Welcome, this is a thought on Parshas Mishpatim. Parshas Mishpatim, this week's Parsha, which deals with many of the civil laws found in Torah, brings with it a fundamental question. There's a principle in Torah called bakodesh. We go up in holiness. And that's not just a concept that stays on the level of thought, but it's a concept that permeates even our actions and permeates Jewish law. For example, there are many reasons why Hanukkah candles should be lit in a different way than they are now. But we light them in an ascending order. The first night 1, the second night 2, and so forth, because of this very concept of bakodesh, that we go up in holiness. So Parshas Mishpatim brings with it a fundamental question. At the end of last week's Parsha, Parshas Yisrael, you had Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, which was a one-time event and the greatest revelation of godliness in the world. Obviously, when Mashiach comes and the world is perfected, there'll be even greater levels of godliness revealed until the ultimate level of godliness being shown to be in everything. But the ability for that will be on Matan Torah, and we'll still remember Matan Torah at that point. Not just that, but it says, and we spoke about this more and in much more detail on sheerenjoyment.com on Parshas Yisrael. But Matan Torah is eternal. The voice that Hashem spoke with at Matan Torah and said Anochi is also the voice with which Hashem answers every single person when they learn Torah. When somebody's learning Torah, Hashem answers them and gives more strength into the Torah, and that and the level of Hashem that answers is that very voice that was heard at Mount Sinai and that never stopped, because it was a level of Hashem that was above limits, including the limit of time. So that still goes on today. It's just the revelation to us at that time was for a limited event, but it's an eternal revelation of Hashem. And we spoke also on sheerenjoyment.com about the effect that the giving of the Torah has for all generations after and for all eternity. So right after that, we have Parshas Mishpatim. Parshas Mishpatim teaches about how to deal with a servant, how to treat a servant. What happens if somebody hurts someone? What happens if somebody digs a pit in the middle of public property and forgets to close it up? What happens when someone's ox hurts, either gores another ox or destroys property? How is that bakodesh? How do we go from the giving of the Torah, the greatest revelation of godliness in the world, to all kinds of civil codes, including what to do when you catch a thief? The answer is that you can make a prelude to this answer. You can make the question even stronger. At the time of this great revelation, where it says that Hashem said all of the dibres, all of the commandments at once, and then repeated each one individually, and when he repeated each one individually, the souls left their bodies and they had to be brought back and resurrected with the dew that Hashem will use to resurrect the people at the time of Tchias HaMesim, at the time of the revival of the dead. Judaism believes in eternal reward, not just for the soul, but also for the body that does the mitzvahs. And therefore the body will be purified, and all not such good parts will fall off. In general, the not good inside the person will go away, and the body will live on in a good and holy state for all eternity, because it also deserves reward for all of the mitzvahs that it accomplished, all of the good things that it did in this world. So Matan Torah was so tremendous, and at the time of Matan Torah, what was said? Don't murder, don't do immoral acts, don't kidnap, or according to some Pirushim, some explanations, it really does mean just don't steal. We know that in Parshas Mishpatim there's all kinds of stuff about not stealing, but the question is, what was that commandment that's part of the 10 Commandments? There's a difference of opinion among commentators. And certainly all the subdivision things certainly include all kinds of moral laws and fundamental laws that seemingly you don't need a great revelation of godliness and of Hashem himself on Mount Sinai to know that you're not supposed to. A person knows they're not supposed to murder, they're not supposed to steal or kidnap, they're not supposed to act immoral. Why were these things mentioned at the time of the giving of the Torah? The answer is in the Lubavitcher Rebbe brings out a very interesting point that one could take a fundamental lesson from this in their own lives. There are times that a person feels spiritually high, whether it's on Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, or whether it's just on a regular day. He has an awakening from above. The soul comes out and the soul is bothered or wants to become closer to Hashem. Or he's davening well and thinking about the meaning within davening. So it shouldn't be left it shouldn't just be left to itself. The person should think, while he's feeling this high level of connection with Hashem, that even though this level might chas v'shalom go away, or might become less, he's still going to make a decision right now to either do something good or refrain from doing something not good. And with that, this connection that he now feels, which is seemingly temporary, will have an eternal effect going forward. Even when the connection wears off, he's going to say, I want to connect strongly with Hashem, and therefore I'm taking upon myself this one mitzvah every week, or therefore I'm taking upon myself not to do this. And you see this very much in Parshas Mishpatim. Now you see why Parshas Mishpatim is the natural hemshech, the natural continuation to the giving of the Torah. Because the Torah now, through Parshas Mishpatim, comes out in all aspects of life. And the truth is, the Torah has been not just the guiding light to the nations, but also the source of much of civil code. In North America, you have the civil codes are based primarily on two civil codes of origin, one of them being the British Civil Code, the other being the French Civil Code. Those were made by leaders in Europe who didn't always do the right things and didn't have any connection with Judaism, but saw fit to study the Talmud and certainly had an appreciation for the Torah, and specifically for Parshas Mishpatim, for these laws within Exodus that deal with monetary and civil matters. And you see a lot of great wisdom in them. It says, a person who wants to become smart, wants to become wise, should learn the monetary laws, because when you learn the monetary laws, you come across a law that you would think to decide in an opposite way. And then you realize, look, Hashem, who created the whole world, for sure knows better than I do. The Torah for sure knows better than I do. And you sit down and you have to think about this law and why it is this way until you understand it and it becomes clear, and it does become clear, that this is the right way, and what you would have done before would have actually encumbered somebody or not gotten the proper result, not gotten the person who should be paid back what they need, or caused somebody to pay what they shouldn't pay. And the law and the reason for it becomes clear, and that only takes usually a few minutes of thought, and then it becomes crystal clear. So, by living with the Torah and by living with it on the most basic levels, the Torah comes out into the world, which was the purpose of the giving of the Torah, that the entire world should be changed around, and that the entire world should reflect what it really is, part of Hashem's creation.